Good morning, everyone, and thanks for making time, especially on a weekend, to join this meet. This event is organized by AIC RMP under the ambit of Startup20 Sabha, and we have a distinguished panel of speakers who have been ex-entrepreneurs, who are entrepreneurs, and also angel and VC fund managers. So at the same time, to just give an introduction about the entire thing, I would like to start with the idea that what this is entirely about. So Startup 20 is an official engagement group that has been established under the G20 presidency that India is presiding over for the year 2023. And the idea is to get all the ecosystem players together so that we can go out and figure out solutions which are required for creating sustainable businesses that can solve the issues with regards to net zero or being carbon neutral or achieving goals with regards to reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. So these are pretty generic. Now let's move further. And as the speaker who will really steer the entire conversation today, I'll just give a brief introduction about myself and then go forward to each and every speaker who will be heading a special initiative, and they will be talking about their experience and how they are coming in for this specific Startup 20 Sabha. So about me, my name is Gurudat Rao. I have been and I am an entrepreneur, and right now I work in the non-profit area that is focused on green entrepreneurship by working with an organization called as TechnoServe. At the same time, I consult startups through the MARG initiative of Startup India. Apart from this, by background, I am an engineer and a researcher, and I love to work with startups in the initial stages so that they can be handholded so that they can reach a level where they can raise and become sustainable. So that's it about me. Let's go to the first point in our meeting today. That is basically an address by Dr. Chinta Vaishnav, who is the current chair of the Startup Engagement Group under G20, and also he is the mission director at AIM. So I would request Rocky to play Dr. Chintan's video, please.
Supporting these startups and more than 54,000 investors such as angel investors, venture capitalists, and private equity funds. At the highest level, Startup 20 has two overarching objectives that must be achieved simultaneously. First, to harmonize the global startup ecosystems in order to facilitate collaboration across these ecosystems. But second, to do so while preserving the freedom of national ecosystems to develop and grow as they desire simultaneously. Now, before discussing Startup 20 further, let me provide a brief background on how the G20 itself is organized. This is the first time India has the presidency of the G20, which arguably is the world's most influential economic forum with over 85% of the world's GDP and 2/3 of the world's population. The forum is organized in three tracks: the Sherpa track, the finance track, and the engagement groups. The first two tracks, the Sherpa track and the finance track, are governmental tracks, while the third set, which is the engagement groups, is the set of non-governmental groups. The engagement groups are expected to produce recommendations for the world leaders towards their process of policy making. And Startup20 is one such engagement group. Under the G20 umbrella this year, Startup20 is the only new engagement group. This group was proposed by India and has been agreed to by other nations. Startup20 as a group will, for the first time in the history of G20, produce recommendations related to startups for the world leaders this year. Here's how the Startup20 engagement group is organized. I, Chintan Vaishnav, serve as the chair of this group. iCreate is the secretariat, PhD Chamber of Commerce is the program directorate, Deloitte is the knowledge partner, and then from the government side, members of Startup India and Atal Innovation Mission form the core team for Startup20. The recommendations are developed by the overseas and Indian task force councils and members. And then there are many other organizations involved, such as partner organizations like UN Women and other in-kind partners, and unicorn, official, and prime sponsors of this engagement group. The work of Startup20 is done through three task forces. First, foundation and alliances. Second, finance. And third, inclusion and sustainability. Foundation work is focused on the harmonization of startup-related definitions and terminologies. Alliances work is focused on setting up institutional mechanisms for the startup ecosystems across G20 nations to form a global network of alliances. Finance work is focused on enabling the flow of global capital into startups across G20 nations. Inclusion work is focused on supporting entrepreneurs from marginalized groups, as well as support of the inclusion-focused startups. And sustainability work is focused on scaling SDG-focused startups globally. The group expects to produce the following outputs. First, the main deliverable of this group is the policy communique to be submitted to the world leaders. There are 4 other deliverables that will be produced in the process of producing the communique. First, a startup definition framework and terminology handbook. Second, a startup financing framework for financing across G20 nations. Third, mechanisms to accelerate startups addressing critical SDG and inclusion gaps. And fourth, a blueprint for creating a network of global innovation centers to foster collaborations across G20 nations and organizations. Startup20 will progress through 4 major meetings. It started its work with the inception meeting in Hyderabad in January 2023. The second meeting was Sikkim Sabha in March 2023. The next meeting is in Goa in June, and this meeting is focused on finalizing the policy communique. The final meeting, which is the Startup20 Summit meeting, will be held in Gurugram in July 2023. At all of these meetings, there are discussions, startup showcases, and Startup20X talks. Let us now watch 2 brief videos that show the glimpses of the Hyderabad inception meeting and the Sikkim Startup Sabha.
For us, being in India and G20 Startup 20 meeting is so important.
It was amazing being here to discover the Indian market and also the other G20 participants.
Well, I really enjoyed being part of our task force of foundations because we were not a super large group, but large enough to have different groups where we had discussions and brainstorming.
It was a great experience sharing this VR technology that we are building with the common people.
So yeah, experience was really good. The arrangement is good, and we are getting a lot of inquiries from this G20, and really helpful for the G20 to organize this in Sikkim.
As we head into the Goa Sankalpana meeting, where we want to build consensus on the final policy communique, I'm here to share with you the first public draft of this communique. I'm here to request you to provide your comments on this draft so as to make it reflect your concerns as accurately.
Thank you, Rocky,
as possible.
and
Meaning
hope
the concerns of
everyone
the
was able
startup
to
ecosystems of
see
the
the
world.
contents of the video, which gives an
This is
entirety of an
important
idea about the flow in which the entire initiative is, and it has been meant to solve each and every problem at a very grassroots level. So it requires the initiative not only from startups and ecosystem enablers, but also policymakers. And at the same time, without any startup, the real oxygen of any startup as such is the funds and the operational cash flow that they can go about with. So in line with that, I would like to have our the first speaker per se to be talking about the entire thing, and who is part of the funding task force as such, Vikram Potnis. Vikram Potnis is the founder of Fund Enable, and at the same time, he has been very well entrenched into the entire startup ecosystem in India. He and his organization have helped startups to really raise money in millions of dollars, and they do an end-to-end mentoring with regards to how they can go about with hand-holding startups which are not yet ready or up to the mark, and how they can be taken to the next level, especially with regards to valuation, with regards to tweaking their business models, especially while going into newer geographies. So apart from this, he is right now pursuing his PhD under Dr. Yes, under Dr. Asit Acharya at Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay University, especially on the entrepreneurship side. So we really hope that he can provide his insights in this conversation, and at the same time keep mentoring startups going ahead. So over to you, Vikrant.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I'm going to just start by sharing my screen. And let me tell you, I've been reading the chat window where every one of you, you're mentioning about your businesses. Really happy to connect, great ideas, and would love to connect with you later. I will leave my contact details on the chat window. My name is Vikrant. I'm the founder of Fund Enable. I'm going to quickly explain, give you an introduction of what we do at Fund Enable. Predominantly at Fund Enable, we raise capital for startups. We help startups in raising a round of capital. So far, we've worked on transactions totaling more than 500 crores. We've worked across 30 sectors. And we also have an initiative where we work very closely with incubation centers, which I will talk in a while. Our main focus remains skilling entrepreneurs in this domain of entrepreneurial finance and fundraising. For the lack of better words, what differentiates men from boys or girls from women in this whole fundraising game is actually the knowledge of fundraising. And that is what we focus on a lot before the founder actually goes ahead and raises a round of capital per se. Typically, we are divided into two services: bespoke capital advisory and fundraising for incubated startups. In capital advisory, we act like an investment bank which supports founders in raising a round of capital. Today, all of you are very well versed with fundraising. The problem is the time. You don't have the time to wake up in the morning and continuously, work on fundraising, because you have to run the business as well. So Fund Enable takes that entire work of, creating your decks, financial models, reaching out to investors, discussing valuation, structuring the right deals, negotiating term sheets for you, managing the due diligence process, working on the shareholders agreement. And finally, there are certain post-funding compliances that you have to take care of. So that end-to-end work, heavy lifting, is done by us while you focus on running the business. Obviously, the founder still remains at the center of capital raising. So that is what predominantly the company does. Some of our recent transactions, and I'm really surprised and happy to say that all of the funding is coming through the G20 countries itself, right? So while the flow of capital is one of the key areas that we are focusing on, it is actually already happening. We just have to kind of, strengthen it further so that it reaches each and every founder in the country. So one of our recent transactions, we raised money for this company called eMotorrad from Pune. It was a $4 million round. And it was actually from a very interesting fund called Green Frontier Capital, which is a climate impact fund. So technology that actually impacts globally in terms of climate was the story of this particular, I would say, transaction, which was very, very interesting per se. And we raised that capital for the company, eMotorrad. We've also worked on bottom of the pyramid livelihood when it comes to this company called Work India, where the last round which was raised was a $12 million round. Previously, I've worked on 6 rounds of capital for this particular company. Again, a very interesting company which gives livelihood to security guards, telecallers, field sales guys, etc., which is the bulk of what Indian Task Force is today. Some of the other transactions include Task Tracker, etc., where we've raised money from angels, individuals, etc. These are some of the investors that we have. We are pretty much connected with investors across the globe. Our expertise is to reach out to people across the globe and raise a round of capital. So while we work with select companies on capital raising, we also work with incubation centers on helping startups in raising a round of capital through capability building. Like I said, knowledge of capital raising is very important. A lot of times, an idea which is similar to you has been able to raise money, but you've not been able to. And the only difference there is that particular person knew how to raise it, and possibly you did not, right? That was the only difference, right? And therefore, knowing how to raise money, what are the nitty-gritties of it, the nuts and bolts of capital raising is very important. Then we go on and mentor these companies one-on-one and prepare them for fundraising. And finally, through demo days, we bring relevant investors to the table. Again, the word relevant investors is very critical here. Most of the Indian startups today are facing the challenge of knocking the wrong door. You're going to an investor, but that investor is actually not right for you. They are possibly looking at a different sector, their ticket size is different, they don't have money right now, and so on and so forth. So connecting with the relevant investors is also very, very important. And these are the 12 modules that we actually talk about, discuss, whether it is funding readiness, creating financial models, how do we value our companies, using deal structures like CCDs, CCPS, etc. All of that is actually taken care of. Some of our partner incubators, almost 50 plus in the country. And these are some of the pictures of our demo days where we, bring investors, on one-on-one meetings. What we focus on is not a one-to-many, but one-on-one, because we believe that real investments happen through a one-on-one meeting with the investor versus a one-to-many demo day. Through the incubation initiative, we would have raised around 15 crores for startups through this entire, working closely with incubators per se. And some of our, ecosystem development activities, which we keep conducting every month across 10 to 15 cities in the country today. Talking about the current, topic and summarizing it is, I just wanted to give you a quick input into what are our learnings and how does 2024 look like, FY24 look like for entrepreneurs from a fundraising standpoint, and what are the learnings that we have that one should apply. So everyone is talking about funding winter, but let me tell you, there is significant dry powder or money is there in the ecosystem today. Especially Indian funds are sitting on capital. What has happened is the expectations of the investors from startups have changed. Investors are now looking more into sustainable business models, unit economics, margins. The whole concept of scale at any cost has kind of gone, and the business fundamentals have taken over, and therefore the expectation from the investor from a startup has actually increased. So even when you go to an angel investor today, they are going to ask you, hey, are you making money? And show me your margins, show me your unit economics. And that is actually making it more and more difficult for us to raise a round of capital and what we are calling as funding winter per se. In terms of sectors, some of the sectors like SaaS, fintech, gaming, AI-led use cases, social impact, climate are taking over big time and will continue to stay in FY24. From the founder's perspective, what you should be looking at is if you need capital in the next 3 months, you should actually plan for a 6 to 8 months kind of a process for capital raising versus a 3 to 4 months, which was happening because deals are taking longer at this point in time. What you should also look at is strategic investment. Who is an investor? A venture capitalist or an angel fund or an angel network is not the only investor. Whoever in the world who finds your business relevant is an investor for you. So reach out to SMEs, reach out to corporates across the world, reach out to relevant people who will find strategic fitment with your business. And that may not always be a venture capital fund, right? So we've raised a lot of money recently from SMEs doing like 500, 400 crore top line businesses in India. And startups have raised money from them versus going to a VC fund, right? Also look beyond equity, opting for alternate financing methods like revenue-based financing, debt, working capital facilities. All of that needs to be looked at very closely. And like I said, deal closure is taking slightly longer. So be prepared for it as we go into the new year, right? Talking about summarizing the finance task force, point, the 3 points that I've picked up when it comes to the G20 finance task force and what I want to kind of put across to you is one was increasing access to capital, right? Increasing access to capital, and that too at a very early stage. Like I said, amongst the G20, the capital flow, especially in India, inwards is happening. But what is happening is at a very early stage, it is not coming through. And the way we are solving this problem is by creating more and more individual investors, especially in tier 2, tier 3 cities, through, again, capability building. We have an angel investing school, access to quality deals, show deals which are quality to these angels, and provide them end-to-end transaction closure support. And why did we decide to do that? Historically, if you see in Silicon Valley, okay, who were the initial investors in Silicon Valley startups? They were not the ones who were coming from, maybe a Washington, maybe some other state, or maybe some other city. These were local investors only. So let's say in Nashik, if we want startups to get more and more investments at an early stage, we have to actually create local investors in that particular city. And those are the guys who will start investing. Is there money in Nashik? Yes, there is. What is the challenge? Capability building, telling them what startup investment is like, and then raising money from them and giving them opportunities to invest is the challenge that we are actually starting, right? So most global ecosystems got developed locally first from an investor standpoint. And if we want to raise more and more capital, we have to have more and more individual investors to begin with at local level. So that is what we are actually working on very closely by creating more angel investors across smaller cities, especially. The second is, the task force had a point around capital beyond equity, and it is so important. All of us are just focused on VC, VC, VC. If I write on the chat window, how many of you want to raise venture capital money, and 9 out of 10 will say that, hey, I want equity funding. But you will not believe, more and more founders today are exploring options beyond equity. The reason is there is fatigue of capital raising, exhaustive process, multiple rounds. You lose autonomy through board seat, exit pressures, drag along rides. There is cap on your salaries. And then in today's market, like I said, investors are expecting sun, moon, and earth. So to avoid that, options like revenue-based financing, simple bank loan, working capital facility, bill discounting. There are so many platforms that are there available today for these, which we should actually start exploring. And expanding without equity funding is possible. It's only about focusing on that for certain business models, and we should do that. And finally, the last point is cross-border flow of capital, creating joint programs, especially with incubators across G20 countries. I think this is one area which I'm going to leave open because very little work has happened, and maybe more and more work can happen in this particular area per se. So that's it from my side in terms of this particular topic, my introduction, and the overall finance task force per se. Happy to connect with you later. I will leave my contact details on the chat window. And thank you so much for patiently listening and giving me an opportunity to interact with you. Thank you so much.
We can't hear you, Gurudarji. There seems to be some audio issue with Gurudarji. I think he'll reconnect, but we already have Keshav Daga, representative from Invest India. So I would like to welcome Keshavji. Keshavji, if you could just sort of, yeah, wonderful. Really appreciate. Thank you so much for joining in. And you work on sustainability coming from UC Berkeley's, and then your research work around sustainability area. And then I can see a lot of startups that are there working in that particular domain. I'm sure your insights around sustainability and around the task force will really help all the participants. Over to you, Keshavji.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the introduction, Udayji, and thanks for the invitation. Very good morning to everyone present here. I would like to start by shedding a light on the crucial role that sustainability is going to play not just in the development of our economy but also in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals within the startup ecosystem. So as we discuss the framework for harmonizing the global startup ecosystem, it is really essential to recognize how the SDGs can create an impact both positively on a local as well as global scale. There are various interventions that the government is taking for sustainability. They have state level interventions and central interventions as such. For example, one of the key interventions that we've recently come to know is EPRs, which is Extended Producer Responsibility. Now, this is a way for plastic producers and manufacturers to kind of roll back their plastic production and kind of recycle more than the production limit. So, and implementing this has been a challenge, but it is with a time frame of 5 years. So again, to come to this point of central government's intervention, there are various interventions such as this EPRs, which are opening up new spaces for startups to capitalize on. Again, there are millions of plastic manufacturers in the country, but there are not many recyclers in the country. How do we incentivize this? How do we incentivize something which does not have a lot of value? That's where you incentivize the companies to kind of tackle the problem. It's the consumer that are demanding the products, but it's the company that is manufacturing the products. So if you can look at it from this point of view, that there is this awareness that needs to be created, which is opening up opportunity in the awareness field. Then there's this companies who are trying to manufacture plastic, and then there is this opportunity in helping them reduce their plastic consumption or recycle the plastic that they're coming out with. So just to give you a brief, just wanted to give you a brief, idea of what the interventions are looking like. So let us understand the significance of sustainability in the startup ecosystem. So sustainable practices are really important, and they also have a direct correlation with business success. In fact, there are various energy synergies possible in the energy space, in the battery space, in the EV space, in multiple spaces that's opening up right now, which was not ever there 10 years ago. I can give you one notable example that everybody can resonate with. It's a very big classic example. But let's talk about the electric vehicle industry. The industry is growing at a breakneck speed. We have almost 4 million vehicles in roads right now. In fact, the target of the government is to have 10 million new vehicles sold by 2030 every year to be EV, electric vehicle. And 80% of this vehicle is dominated by, of course, two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And the unit economics, they are kind of coming at par with ICE, which is the internal combustion engines. So electric vehicles, certainly, the industry was not there 5 years ago, 7 years ago, and suddenly it's kind of one of the biggest, sector of growth. Uh, the current estimates, show us that it's a $200 billion industry in the making. And also the government has incentivized a lot of things. For example, the FAME subsidy, incentivizing the buyers and the suppliers for electric mobility, portions. And then you have, examples of startups such as Tesla that have not only revolutionized transportation, but they've demonstrated potential for this sustainable business model, which kind of is pushing more and more startups to kind of enter this space. I've seen a record new VC money, venture capital money, flow into sustainable businesses, sustainability-based businesses, I would say. Electric vehicles, of course, being one of them. So by aligning, the sustainable development goal, which is affordable and clean energy and climate action, these companies have created innovative solutions. So which is kind of, as I mentioned earlier, how sustainability and SDGs will go hand in hand with the development of economy. This sector, which was not existent earlier, it's kind of coming into place at a breakneck speed as such. So you can see how the success highlights how sustainability focused startups can drive economic growth. Now if you look at further opportunities available in this field, there are almost, let's break it down to 17 goals of a wider range of issues, including poverty, hunger, health, education, clean water, sustainable cities, responsible consumption, as and many more. So these startups working on these should align their missions with these specific SDGs and kind of leverage the entrepreneurial ecosystem right now that is coming into place. Uh, let's take another example of health and well-being. Okay, so 1MG being an Indian digital health platform, it's a recognized startup. It's been acquired by the best of the best and being funded by leveraging mobile application and technology and telemedicine services. They are helping users to access doctors and order medicines online. This is helping promote health and well-being. So it's kind of helping address not just that, but also I would say no poverty, because accessible, making healthcare more affordable. So it's very important if you can kind of. It's very interesting and important to see how aligning business models with SDGs can help you create new opportunities as such. And it's completely something which has not been there as a key focus area since in the beginning. It's coming into now. In the last couple of years, you've been seeing a lot of these interventions come into place. 40, I mean, as per statistics, almost 40% of the startups worldwide right now are involved in activities related to SDGs. And these startups are our biggest bet as a society, as a country, society, and a global, economy to generate the value we need while addressing both social and environmental challenges. uh, in the last couple of years, sustainable investments have crossed thresholds. They have, the returns have been much higher than anywhere else. And you have been seeing a lot of companies moving into the race as well. It's not just startups anymore. It's just bigger companies kind of, venturing into sustainable or taking up sustainability as a key portion of their business model. I can give you an example. For example, Coca-Cola, or you can degrowth and dematerialization. These are kind of some keywords, jargons that you would think of. But let me tell you how it really helps. there was this small startup which was working with a big bottling giant on how to reduce their plastic waste, and they came up with a solution of reducing the thickness of the bottle by zero point 0.1 mm. Now that doesn't only solve a lot of issues in terms of plastic production consumption. It's a circular model. It also helped the company, the bottling company, saves millions of dollars every year on just those plastic issues. So again, this was a classic. This is a classic case of how businesses can evolve, adopt these practices while keeping a key note of their profitability as well, while also looking at the government mechanisms and policies in place, which is again to reduce plastic consumption and circular economy. So I think overall, as we shape the policy framework for Startup 20 or for the next couple of years, in vision of India at Amritkal, which is 2047, we need to seize this opportunity to integrate sustainability and SDG into the very fabric of our ecosystem or startup ecosystem. So together, I think we need to build a future where startups can not only thrive but also contribute in a more sustainable and equitable world. And I think by embracing sustainability as a core principle, startups can create both economic and environmental benefits. So this is one of those key times when you have access to funding, access to capital infusion, access to mentorship, as well as a lot of policy interventions that are there, which are helping startups kind of tap onto these critical issues of sustainability. Uh, I would love to hear if anybody has more questions around this. Definitely, it can be a one-way conversation. I can keep saying about the interventions that the government is having, but happy to answer any questions with anybody.
So maybe Keshavji, you could share your mail ID, and then we'll take up questions offline because again the forum we won't be able to address everyone's queries. So it's just that we just wanted to listen from you, Gurudaji. Maybe hope we can. Could you just keep your
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yeah, perfect. Please.
Yeah, sorry about the inconvenience. And Kishorji, really thanks for providing your insights, especially on the specific facets of clean tech, especially from the FAME subsidy and the net zero and UNSDG's perspective, and also from the opportunities which are there from the EPR side, where an entire ecosystem can be built with regards to material substitution and establishing the entire ecosystem per se. So the two specific things that we have heard from right now is from the sustainability task force and also from the fundraising task force. So taking this ahead, I would like to have one of our startups, which is part of the Parivartan cohort, go ahead and present about themselves. And I would like to give you a brief, basically about what the Parivartan cohort is about. So this Parivartan cohort is basically run as what you can say, an initiative in partnership with the SBI Foundation and the SBI Mutual Fund, and it is meant to provide incubation to ideas which are specifically targeting these areas with regards to clean tech, or whether it's with regards to reducing space, reducing any waste, or with regards to material substitution. And once a startup which we would like to have the founders talk about is called as AgriVijay. They are based out of Maharashtra, and they are basically functioning as a marketplace for trading and providing consulting to people who are using different approaches to clean tech, maybe in the form of solar energy, maybe in the form of bio CNG or biofuel. So I would like to have the founder Vimalji. I think Vimalji, you're on the call, right? Sir,
Yes,
you're
yes. Guru
yes.
Dadji, yes, I'm on the
Yes,
call. Yes,
yes.
yes.
So I would like Vimalji to talk about his initiative and his journey and the challenges what he faces, especially in the area that he is catering to, which in itself is quite revolutionary considering the idea in the entire country. Yes, please, Vimalji, go ahead.
Yes, so we are AgriVijay. Yes, we are India's first marketplace of renewable energy products for farmers and rural households. And we are a purely homegrown startup company, evolved because of the support of Atal Innovation Mission, NITI Aayog, and incubators such as Atal Rambhau. And uh, we have been functioning in the ecosystem for 3 years now. But because of the business model we have on ground, where we understand the energy needs of the farmers and agriculture needs, recommend the solution, sell the solution, finance the solution, install the solution, deliver the solution. So complete end-to-end service provider for farmers in the renewable energy space. And we have 40 plus partners today with 200 plus products provided on the platform, and we are doing this with our omni-channel touch points, offline and online. So online, we have also deployed artificial intelligence based WhatsApp chatbots, where we interact in local languages with the farmers such as Telugu, Marathi, Hindi today. And we have offline model, which is our renewable energy store business model at village level, where we are not only helping people become entrepreneurs, rural village level entrepreneurs at the village level, but also disseminating the knowledge of renewable and green energy products. Because even today, even if you ask any urban consumer how a electric tractor, how an electric trailer works, I think that then only they'll be able to transition making them aware, where we are not only disseminating the knowledge but also making these products available, bringing the financing facility, making these products affordable, aligned with the UNSDG goals. So we are a totally you can say a climate action social enterprise and ACTAC social enterprise working in the space, and we are envisioned to build Atmanirbhar Bharat from rural India, so that once these agrarian economy becomes energy independent, I think we will pave the way for the nation to become energy independent nation as well.
Th- Thank you, thank you, Vimalji, for talking in brief and sharing the entire journey along with the unique proposition that you guys are bringing and trying to revolutionize the entire rural ecosystem with regards to reducing the carbon footprint. Because at the end of the day, most of the farmhold waste is actually just burnt about without actually deriving valuable energy or resources out of it. You guys are doing exceptionally good work. So thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Vimalji. So as our next speaker, I would like to have a very pragmatic and a very experienced person who is among us to actually talk about his journey and the venture that he is heading right now. I would like to introduce Raja Singh ji. So he is right now the CEO of Startup Ventures, the Step Up Ventures, pardon me. And the thing is, the idea is for the entire initiative is to groom entrepreneurs right through the startup journey, and not only just from hand holding, but also taking them to the next level where they are independent and they're sustainable by themselves. Other than that, he is a mentor with different organizations like 91 Springboard, I am Indoor, IIT Delhi, and Innovate. And at the same time, he has run multiple initiatives in the past, like Pahel, Thousand Lives, etc. So I would like to keep it brief and would like to hear from Raja Singh ji about his journey, the challenges, and what his initiatives are, and what we can look forward to him. Please, sir.
Thank you so much, Gurudatji and Udaji, for having me here. Because we're on shortage of time and this is more about the startup and the ecosystem, I'll keep it very brief. So, hi, my name is Raja Singh, and with about 15 years of experience working with about 250 plus startups in the Indian startup ecosystem, I have always focused my niche on helping the startup go from zero to one in the real building Bharat problem solving journey with our global the global network that we have. And what happened a couple of years ago, we stumbled upon an opportunity where we said, hey, you know what? The government of ours, the leadership has been promoting innovation and India to a very large extent, but there is a $5 trillion economy dream that has been put out. So can the $5 trillion economy dream be fulfilled without the contribution of majority of the population, which sits under the minority status, or so should I say, the marginalized sector. So we started this incubator called the Startup Ventures, where the idea was to create a sustainable anchor organization in the startup space for underserved minorities and the underrepresented. Uh, and to do that, we looked back at the Indian unicorn ecosystem and we said, we've been lucky. We've got 100 plus unicorns and we're growing, being the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. But how many of those are actually coming from the minorities or the underrepresented and whatnot? And we found that there was a very, very small ratio of the same. So we started this with the, um, uh, I'm sorry, is my voice clear now? Okay. So we started by the goal of empowering these minorities to embark on this journey from the tier two, tier three, or the ones serving to tier two, tier three. And we ended up creating this entire ecosystem of experts or unicorns, entrepreneurs, chambers of commerce, colleges, governments, etc. And to our surprise, we had all these venture capital funds that came across and they said, you know what, we've got funds. There is this so-called funding winter that's happening. And the problem is we do not get the vetted deal flow. We don't care whether the deal flow comes from the minorities or it doesn't. What we care about is the unit economics. So when we promise these guys, we're going to give you a vetted deal flow, and this will, in return, impact the Indian ecosystem and the economy at a large, they automatically came forward. And this is only a small number of partners that I've put across out of the 70 plus we've got. And to our surprise, when we launched our incubator about a year and a half ago, we got 900 plus applications from over 194 cities, which we had to cut down our applications and say, hey, you know what? We don't have enough resources to go through all the applications and look at these. This is an older slide, but at this point in time, we have our startups which are currently valued at more than 300 crores. So this was just a brief about what we do at the Step Up Ventures. And I quickly want to showcase the idea of Startup 20 and the power of alliance, guys, really quickly. Just give me a second. I hope this is visible. So the idea has always been, as an economy, we are growing, and we understood along a lot of other economies that solving the problem of the economy using job creation and helping with innovation may not happen at the top level. The government can only give out so many funds and create jobs. But what if those funds were given to startups and the startups created 100x of those job creations? So with the government initiative in place, the government at the helm of the presidency of G20 opened something called the Startup 20 Engagement Group. And I'll take you through that very quickly, whether you heard Dr. Chintanji and Udayji. So the idea was create this engagement group as a collective, which is going to help with the policy framework to enhance global startup ecosystem with two major primary goals. One was harmonizing the ecosystem, the global ecosystem, and second was preserving the freedom of individual nations. And to do this entire thing, the Startup 20 group was broken down into 5 alliances: Foundation Alliance, Foundation Task Force, Alliance Task Force, Finance Task Force, Inclusion Task Force, and Sustainability Task Force. And the idea was, how do we bring in all the stakeholders, including startups, incubators, accelerators, and the government bodies, for the purpose of fostering collaboration, cooperation, knowledge exchange, resource sharing, and collective advocacy per se. So the government has given certain recommendations, including establishing of effective channels between the global 20s. And the reason for that is that doing this the effective channels helps facilitating a lot of important things, including the knowledge transfers, the policy makings, the funds, the mentors, the job creations, etc. So these 3 recommendations, which you will see at a later stage, have been given by the government, including some policies around the same. Overall, what we think at the Step Up Ventures, and this is what we want to put forth, that the importance and the impact that these Startup 20 policies are going to bring in, primarily, this is important for the economic growth and the job creation. And as you can see, according to the World Economic Forum, startups that scale through a global alliance network have the ability to create 70% of new jobs globally. And the alliances have the ability to offer better infrastructure around the 20 economies. And with the knowledge sharing that we can do, we can solve critical world problems, including governance, healthcare, IT, food safety, education. And the very niche example which is out there, which relates to all of us, is how the development of COVID vaccine started in one nation. But because of the simplicity of the connections we had, we were able to manufacture that in India. And India became one of the biggest suppliers of the COVID vaccine around the world. And this has only been possible due to the simplest alliances in between different economies. And I'll end by giving you just quick examples on the impact of a few alliances, right? So the startups, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor says that through these alliances, about 40 million new jobs have been created between 2017 and 19. The European Startup Network estimates the Europe alone created more than 1.7 million jobs. The Global Accelerator Network says that about $1.6 billion worth of collective investments has happened across the startup ecosystem due to these alliances, and so on. And multiple other things have happened, including the market expansions. The policy frameworks have helped where startups can now easily move between territories and set up their businesses. The knowledge sharing has become easier. And coming all together, there is a huge amount of data processing that is happening, research that is helping a lot of nations come forward and solve the problems. Having said that, this is a bit about from our side, the Step Up Ventures and me, Raja Singh. I'm happy to take questions offline and see how we can contribute further to the ecosystem. And before ending, I'd like to thank Udayji and the entire AIC Invest India team for having us. Thank you.
Thank you, Raja Singh ji, and really for taking out the time on a Saturday to really spell out your journey and the initiatives that you've done and the exponential growth that you've seen with the target in mind. So I'm very sure most of the startups who are part of this event today, they will be more than happy to reach out to you and get their doubts clarified. So thanks again, sir. So our next speaker, before we go to them, I would first like to say that till now we have seen different task forces and the speakers associated with that. So in line with this, I would like to first say that we have seen that entrepreneurship doesn't have an age, it doesn't have a background, it doesn't have a region, it doesn't have anything to do with an idea that somebody could really implement and get a right product market fit and work on the unit economics also. So in line with that, our next speaker who is there, she is a co-founder of something called as 10,000 Startups India, and also she herself is a young entrepreneur, an angel investor, and an active podcaster. So you can obviously check out her YouTube channel later on. But prior to that, I would first like to ask Ms. Hani Kitani to go ahead and speak about her journey and about her current organization and how they are aiding the entire startup ecosystem. Over to you, Hani.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gurugat. I really appreciate your kind introduction. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Thank you, AIC, for giving us this opportunity to meet you all at a single platform. And really excited to see everyone on a Saturday morning. You know, this is a real hustler's trait. So, really glad to learn more about our partners as well. We are also basically, so let me tell you about 10,000 Startups India. I'm co-founder of 10,000 Startups India. I have my co-founder with me as well today. So about 10,000 Startups India, we are a virtual incubation platform on a global scale, where we handhold startups throughout their journey of marketing, branding, tech support, mentorship, etc. And we also offer business acceleration. So if a product or a service wants to go global, they can go through our platform. We have access in 90 plus countries. So like Vikrant rightly mentioned, right, it's not all about VC. We also tend to connect startups to different stakeholders on a global scale, right? Because it's not just about private equity. You can get funding from a lot of options. That is right. And the second thing is you can also focus on business acceleration, which helps you ultimately bring in money, in your startup, and that can be global. So we have been global since day one, and our company is registered in US and in India. So the founder of this company is Linesh, and I co-founded this company with him. In the last 3 years, we have managed to build a global community of 3,000 plus startups, 300 plus active investors on our platform. It's a mix of angels, HNIs, VC, family offices, etc. And without further ado, I would love to also invite Linesh to join me in the forum and talk a little bit about inclusion. As for the inclusion part, we have always been very inclusive in that sense. We have been global since day one. That is one. And we have an initiative called Startups Exchange, which I spearhead, and I invite global women entrepreneurs on this platform. We connect them to different stakeholders, which is very important for every startup, be it mentors, advisors, CXOs, for a growth of a startup. So these are few initiatives that as 10,000 Startups India, we do to provide that inclusion. And we suggest that, we continue doing that with a lot of right partners like us today. And I'm sure it will be a great engagement, from here on, where we will we will keep on talking a lot about inclusion. We will do that. And in fact, I wanted to share about, Gurudat ji mentioned that I am an avid podcaster. So for the inclusion part, I have launched a series of Spotlight Miss 3, where I am coming up with at least 5 episodes of renowned women in the industry, which they about talking about their success stories and resilient stories in the industry. So do stay tuned. Please connect with me on LinkedIn to get a track of what I have been doing. And if Linesh is here, I'll be happy to invite him as well to speak a little bit.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Hani. I would simply say thank you all for joining this on a weekend. And with 10,000 Startups India, use this as a platform for showcasing your startup to global investors, to CXOs. The way we say there are companies who might invest, it's not only just investors. Sometimes they handhold you, they try to test you, whether you are a good founder along with a good product. So there are a lot of R&D and innovation labs of companies where we can connect you. Personally, I myself worked into the product-based companies, into fintech. My ex-bosses were part of Junjunwala's office and Singapore, Dubai, and Bahrain Stock Exchange. So I would simply say at this stage, you need only 3 things. Number one is visibility. For visibility, you have a brand like 10KSI. In 3 years, we have been spread across the whole world. So take that opportunity. Second part is looking at the right connects, whether it is a CXO or investor. So mapping is very important. There are so many partners out here I can see who can do excellent mapping. So use them. And the third part is obviously be in touch. Networking is the key to success. Anything can happen any day. So thank you so much and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Yes. So thank you, Hani, and thank you, Linesh, and thank you for taking out the time and mentioning about the different initiatives on which you have been working, and especially the 10,000 Startups Initiative is undoubtedly the the best among the many, because not at every place you can have a proper brick and mortar incubator to actually handhold startups. So this is an amazing way for people to get connected and understand possibly a solution can have a local innovator, but it can have a global implication. So thanks a lot for taking out the time and sharing more about yourself, the initiative, and also how we can look forward to having policymakers and change makers come to your podcast and provide us more insights. So really thanks. So as we have seen that we have gone through a flow where we have talked about the funding task force and a person associated with it, a sustainability task force, and also we have seen a startup which is part of AIC RMP, which is specifically working on the sustainability space. Along with that, the last two speakers also talked about the alliances the task force and the inclusion task force. Now, before we go ahead, I would like to also share that I myself, being a
आप
startup
देख रहे हैं
entrepreneur,
मातृ गौरव मैं हूँ
and
व्यास
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
yes. So I, being a startup entrepreneur myself, who has been working in the waste management space, how to exactly improve the entire logistical chain by bringing in IoT and other cloud computing approaches. So in line with that, I would like to summarize all the communication that has come through till now from the different speakers from different task force that are part of this talk today. So what I would like to understand and interpret and put it across is that there are opportunities which are there as part of the sustainability space that are there. But then the main and the important focus point is that we need to keep two important what you can say milestones or like roadmaps that have been put across by two organizations. One is the United Nations and one is by the government of India. From the United Nations perspective, you have the United Nations SDGs, where you have the 17 goals, which talks about what exactly can be done to solve the problems by the year 2050, by the year 2030, and going ahead to 2050. And apart from that, the net zero target that the government of India has put across really puts it out very clearly that what will be the focus areas. So in line with this, based on the feedback that we got from Vikrantji and others, that there is a lot of capital which is there, but the real focus would be to bring in into three specific areas, and that is from intervention for a local innovation which has a global impact. The second one being clean tech adoption techniques, which our speaker from Invest India spoke about, especially on the basis of how we can have material substitutes, or we can have initiatives specifically from the EV space, whether it's battery swapping, etc. And the third one is especially on the ecosystem development. Now, when we talk about the ecosystem development, we have like a lot of waste, a lot of things which are like unusable. Is there a possibility to give it a second lease of life, especially in the forms of upcycling or in the form of downcycling without degrading the environment further? So I have seen in the chat box that there are some startups which are part and they have a customer base right now on like having a substitute for the currently available sanitary pads and for what you can say napkins which are there for kids, which are biodegradable by nature. So it's an amazing initiative. Now the thing is that you really need to get in touch with our mentors here who have been part of this talk, and at the same time people like Udayji, who have been in the startup ecosystem and have been a stalwart in order to really guide these startups and take them to a level where they can really make an impact. So in line with this, I would like to summarize that there are three specific areas. One is on the sustainability part from the clean tech space, second is from the substitution part, and the third is where the solutions can be local but the impact can be global. So it's more like a global solution. So this is something that I would like to summarize from the takeaway of the entire conversation that we had. And also I'm saying this more so from an entrepreneur myself, that these are things which will really bring in the capital. And as Vikrantji has rightly pointed out, equity need not be the right way to go about with it. There are ample of opportunities and there is ample of cash available. The only way is how innovative you can be in order to get your product market fit, and the funds in order to reach the right market segment. So this is the holistic summary that I could decipher from the entire conversation that we had. So going ahead, I would like to just invite our mentor, our guide, and the head of AIC RMP, Uday Vankalaji, to go ahead and take this conversation ahead, because he has been pivotal into really guiding different startups from the early 2000s till date. And he has been associated with different incubators and organizations in different capacities. So, sir, please.
Thank you so much, Gurudaji. Really appreciate. We have got exactly 5 minutes. 12:15 is what we thought that we would be able to wrap up our session. I think we may extend for another 5 minutes. So thanks everyone for staying back. I believe when we started and in between, I saw around 55 participants. Now we have 38. What that really means is simply the ones that couldn't, but we are recording the session. I just want to set the perspective that this particular recording will be uploaded on YouTube, as well as will be shared with Dr. Chintan Vaishnav. So everyone's participation is very, very important. I really appreciate all the speakers for coming down, especially Keshavji from Invest India team, and talking about this. Really appreciate everyone's active participation on this. Maybe I'll just would like to we would like to run a video and then run through our journey. I'll request Rocky if you could just play a video about what AIC RMP does, and then I'll move on to the other parts. Yeah, Rocky, if you could just play the video. Thank you.
नमस्कार, वो है उदय जी वाकावाला, उनसे बात करेंगे।
Namaste. मेरा नाम उदय वाकावाला है. I'm the CEO at Atal Incubation. Sorry, we can't see the video, Rocky. जो Atal Innovation Mission. We can't see the screen. Sorry about the glitch. गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के द्वारा ये एक इनिशिएटिव शुरू किया गया है, जिसके अंतर्गत मेन उद्देश्य है कि जो आत्मनिर्भर भारत है वो हम उसको कैसे अचीव करें, और ये इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर्स के द्वारा ही पॉसिबल है, जिसके तहत अराउंड 70 इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर्स ऑल अक्रॉस इंडिया है. उसमें से एक अटल इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर रामभाव, मालगी, प्रबोधिनी है. We are fortunate to have partners and host institute which are the most reputed in the country. तो जैसे होस्ट इंस्टीट्यूट रामभाव, मालगी, प्रबोधिनी है जो 41 years से कार्यरत है एज एन NGO, और अटल इनोवेशन मिशन, नीति आयोग, तो उसकी क्रेडिबिलिटी है. और ये जर्नी बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग रही है, क्योंकि एज एन इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर हम खुद एक स्टार्टअप की तरह काम करते हैं. ये 4.5 साल की जर्नी है टिल डेट, और उसमें अभी तक 65+ स्टार्टअप्स, 70+ मेंटोर्स जो बहुत ही अहम रोल अदा करते हैं. उसके अलावा हमारे पास इन्वेस्टर्स कम्युनिटी, एकेडमिक पार्टनर्स, द एंटायर इकोसिस्टम इज देयर, जो स्टार्टअप को बहुत जरूरी है. तो हमने AIC RMP में वही फोकस किया है. हम लैब टू मार्केट स्टार्टअप्स को लेते हैं. हम एग्रीकल्चर, ICT, दैट इज इंफॉर्मेशन कम्युनिकेशन टेक्नोलॉजी, जहाँ पे एडटेक, एजुकेशन टेक्नोलॉजी हो गए, हेल्थ केयर हो गए, टेक फॉर सोशल गुड, तो ये थोड़े सेक्टर्स हमने आइडेंटिफाई किए हैं. और ये 4.5 साल की जर्नी में लोग जुड़ते गए, और अभी जो हम स्टेज तक पहुंचे हैं, आई वुड कॉल इट एज स्टेज 1 इज ऑलरेडी कंप्लीटेड विद 65+ स्टार्टअप्स. और जो हमने इम्पैक्ट किया है, 500+ जॉब्स क्रिएट किए हैं ये 65 स्टार्टअप्स के द्वारा. हमारा ज्यादा करके हम महाराष्ट्र बेस्ड जो स्टार्टअप्स है उनको इनवाइट करते हैं एप्लीकेशन के लिए. देन देयर इज अ स्क्रीनिंग प्रोसेस. हमारी जर्नी में हमने देखा कि SBI फाउंडेशन जो हमारे साथ जुड़ा हुआ है, हमने महाराष्ट्र परिवर्तन कोहोर्ट शुरू किया 2022 में, जो एक बहुत ही बढ़िया इनिशिएटिव रहा है, जहां पे हम 15 एंटरप्रेन्योर्स को सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं जो स्केल अप स्टेज पे है या स्केल अप स्टेज तक जाना चाहते हैं, और वो ही हमने सेक्टर्स लिए। सो मैं किसी पर्टिकुलर स्टार्टअप के नाम नहीं लूंगा, बट आप AIC RMP वेबसाइट जाके उसके डिटेल्स ले सकते हैं। और हम साथ में बहुत सारे वर्कशॉप्स करते हैं कॉलेजेस में, इन एंड अराउंड आवर कैंपस, द कॉलेजेस दैट आर देयर इन MBA, engineering, इवन ग्रेजुएट कॉलेजेस। तो हम वहाँ पे एक इंस्टीट्यूशन इनोवेशन काउंसिल रहता है MHRD, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एजुकेशन के द्वारा, तो उनके लिए भी हम वर्कशॉप्स करते हैं, सो दैट मोर एंड मोर स्टूडेंट्स गेट टू नो अबाउट इट। और यही हम चाहते हैं कि और ज्यादा लोग इसमें जुड़े, ये मूवमेंट में जुड़े और आत्मनिर्भर भारत मूवमेंट में जुड़े। और इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर अभी जो एस्टेब्लिश हुए हैं, वी आर प्राउड दैट वी आर अमंग्स द टॉप 5 AICs इन द कंट्री, और हम ये शुरू करना चाहेंगे और एक नया आयाम शुरू करना चाहेंगे अपने नेक्स्ट स्टेप से, जो मैं स्टेज 2 बोलता हूँ, जहाँ पे ज्यादा से ज्यादा इनोवेटर्स, जहाँ पे ज्यादा से ज्यादा कॉलेज स्टूडेंट्स को हम ना सिर्फ नॉलेज दे, बट साथ में उनको एक रोड मैप दिखाएं कि कैसे वो एक एंटरप्रेन्योर से एक एंटरप्राइज बिल्ड करें।
ये हमसे बात करने के लिए धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद।
नमस्कार, आप देख रहे हैं मातृगौरव, मैं हूँ व्यास।
Thank you so much, Rocky, for playing this. Just wanted to give perspective. Really appreciate. The whole idea is what we have been speaking about inclusivity, what we have been speaking about foundation, we have been speaking about finance. I think everything that should really come in from Incubation Center and the ecosystem players. We have got the right partners coming in. The whole agenda of this particular Sabha was that everyone that are participating or watching the video now, through recorded version, they would be doing so, is to fill up the communique, and that communique is very important. Request Rocky if you could just run through. I'm just kind of at this moment putting this in chat window as well, the form that has been there. If you could just zoom in a bit so that people should know, that's there in the chat window. Everyone, including the speakers, we request that these are important inputs going in, and this is for the first time that through a consultative and through an approach like this, that we want all the stakeholders, including the startups that are a part of this forum. And in this forum, I know today that almost 70 to 80% participants are startups. They need to fill this up and then talk about the policy initiatives themselves, that what is it that they feel that needs to be improved upon. There are those basic guidelines or the framework that are being given. If you could just go down, Rocky, a bit. I'll just explain exactly. I mean, you just need to fill in your name, your details, and then there are those 5 task forces within which, as a startup, what is it that you believe? So this is what we really want each one of you to fill it up. I have already pasted the link on the chat window. So foundation task force, I'll talk about it a bit. And then alliances, we have already spoken about, and it's so amazing to have views from Vikrant ji on finance, alliances from Raja Singh, and also inclusion from the 10,000 startup team. And that is what the whole idea is. So I'll just briefly speak about foundation and what I could really gather. One of the things that is aligning the existing definition to the definition framework, that is mainly the Startup India startup definition. I think it's very important that how do we really align the definitions or the definition framework of startups within the G20 forum. I think it's pretty much at this moment that's been defined by Startup India team, but this needs to be done at a global level. And the other part of it is promote policies that facilitate and encourage startup centric global trade. I think SDGs and certain startups that work, that should go beyond boundaries. I believe that's very important, and that should happen through G20 task force or G20 initiative, through which all the nations would come together and they become a part of a sort of a, not just as a customers, but also as a suppliers, or the entire world is open for startups. I think that will really help all the startups, and that's what the foundation, yeah, we can stop the form. So that's the whole idea of having everyone within the forum and then building on the foundation. And what I've seen on ground is mainly what Vikrant ji, Raja ji, and everyone's really spoke about it, right? That on ground, what we see is there is that last mile connectivity. That's the biggest issue, that a startup, either they don't know the schemes or they don't know exactly how they could leverage the ecosystem. And that's where players like us should come together and ensure that it's not just, hey, only the angel investor perspective or a VC perspective. There is more to it. There is revenue based financing. There is more to it through SMEs that you can raise funds. I think that's the next step forward for the India, as well as the Amrit Kal 2047, what we see around policies. So really appreciate everyone. Thanks a lot. I can see some known faces. I could see Dr. Lakshmi, Dr. Namrata, Naitik Vyas, Sanjay Kapoor. Really appreciate everyone for coming down. It's been really a pleasure. We have been working in the ecosystem for more than a decade now. We have seen the ecosystem growing, evolving over a period of time, and our contribution and our now the further engagement, I think that's very, very important. So with this, again, I would like to acknowledge, starting off with Keshavji, Keshav Daga, who's the senior investment specialist at Invest India, for giving his valuable time. Dr. Chintan Vaishnav for his video message. Surely we spoke about the finance, and I think Vikrantji's perspective were very app in terms of what has been required in the finance particular section. So thank you so much, Vikrantji, for your valuable insights. Raja Singh Buchi ji for his thoughts on alliances. And I think the Step Up Ventures has done really some amazing work in terms of being much more as an alliance community, and then taking everyone on board. The inclusion part, really loved your approach, Linesh and Honey, in a way that how you have built 10,000 Startups India exchange. And definitely it's very important from sustainability perspective as well. So pleasure to have our incubatee Agri Vijay that's been working so aggressively in this particular domain, reaching out to all the important stakeholders. Last but not the least, Gurudat ji, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And with this, we conclude our Sabha, and I really appreciate mainly the participants, right? I mean, without them, I'm sure, and I could see a lot of interesting messages that's been going around in a way that everyone wants to network, everyone wants to leverage the ecosystem. Somewhere I believe that it's our responsibility as a part of the ecosystem to reach out to the last mile and reach out to the right startups and provide them what they really require. And I'm sure with this particular network, what we have done, and with the forum that we have, that's so really amazing. And I let me add here that we just don't have only the startups. We have facilitators, mentors, academic institutions, incubators. It's a diverse set of participants. That's what we have. So thank you once again for making this Startup Sabha so successful. And we will now reach out to Dr. Chintan Vaishnav and his team for everyone's participation. Really appreciate. Thank you so much.